Brian is a brand new dad. And
Yep.
congratulations, Brian. How is life as a capital raiser, as a dad, as a new dad?
Yeah, there's definitely, first of all, thank you for having me on the show. I know we've been connected for some time, Tim. I appreciate the opportunity. But to answer your question, it's definitely, there's a learning curve to it. There's no instruction manual on how to raise a kid. They're all a little bit different, of course. And even though you think you're prepared for that first kid, you never really are prepared, no matter how old or young you are. So it's been definitely a learning journey for me and my wife. But I will tell you, it's a huge blessing and we're enjoying every moment of it. And it gives me, not that I needed another why, but if you want to really have a why, having a little person to wake up to every morning, it's definitely very motivational.
Okay. What about platforms like LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram? Which of those platforms have you found more success with?
That's a good question. So, me personally, my wife will make fun of me. I don't have an Instagram. So, I'm definitely out of date when it comes to that. I don't use TikTok. And part of the reason is I tell myself, and this is just me, I'm not knocking anybody who has those or uses those. I don't have time for any more distractions in my life. Is That's at least what I tell myself. But I am very active on LinkedIn and I am very active on Facebook because those are the two platforms for me that have bared the most fruit, right? Doesn't mean the other two can't, but for me personally, I've been there longer. I have a big enough audience and following that if I do something, my leverage is higher because I have more eyes are looking at me. LinkedIn definitely being the one that I feel like it's gotten the most momentum in the last 12 to 18 months for most people. I've been on LinkedIn since 2020. So I actually didn't have a LinkedIn prior to 2020. COVID hit, and then I got on LinkedIn. This was before LinkedIn was sexy. And before they had a bunch of rules too, because now the algorithm only lets you add so many people per day and send so many messages per day, and there's all this stuff you have to be careful of. But I just started connecting with people like crazy. So I built my LinkedIn audience very fast during COVID and coming in 2021. Then I hit the pause button because I got really busy with a bunch of other stuff and didn't really take it seriously, but picked up momentum again this year. LinkedIn is a very powerful tool. If you have the Pro Plan and Sales Navigator, we can get very technical here, and how you can find accredited investors by searching for very specific. I want to find doctors. I want to find doctors in Houston, Texas. I want to find the ones that have been doing this for at least 10 years. And I want to find the ones that went to the University of Houston, which is where I went to school. And I want to find ones that are second and third degree connections because I don't know them yet. Search. It will spit out a very small list usually. And you can be very intentful about following up with or reaching out to those people. And again, we're building relationships here. And I'm trying to add value to people. This is not we all, Tim, how many sales messages do you get a day on LinkedIn?
Yep.
You can't count them on one, two hands, right? It's kind of funny, but also like I get it. And yes, am I trying to get them to write me a check? Absolutely. But I'm also trying to build a relationship before we get there. And maybe it never gets there, and that's okay too, but I'm trying to add value to them, right? So I'm reaching out, connecting. And while most people aren't going to, that same process of tell me about your family, that's a really awkward conversation on LinkedIn. You just met me, right? So there's a different approach you have to take. And there's maybe another call for another day. We can talk about that. But having a strategy on LinkedIn, being able to reach out to people and to find different things you can funnel them to, right? So that you can funnel them to webinars, you can funnel them to your newsletter, you can funnel them to any in-person events you're hosting, you can funnel them to any media. If you have a YouTube channel, if you have a podcast, whatever it is that you have, you want to funnel your investors there into that event so you can start to build your list. People will sign up for things, they get into your CRM. That's the best way to use LinkedIn. And the money is all in the DMs when it comes to LinkedIn, in my opinion. There's a lot of big people. I'm good friends with a lot of people that are very popular on LinkedIn. They got all the badges and stuff, and they get 100 comments on every post. And I'll sometimes straight up ask them, and they're in the commercial real estate space. Hey, how many LPs did you get out of your posts this year? And they're like 3. And I'm like, what? And it's because they're not sending DMs. They're like LinkedIn celebrities, and they have a lot of eyes, but clicks don't lead to checks, or likes aren't checks. People don't write you checks just because you have a lot of likes. People write checks because you're having a conversation, and then we schedule a call and it goes from there, right? I send a lot of cold DMs to people, or I get DMs too from my content. So there's a whole strategy about creating content so you get inbound leads on LinkedIn, and then also using Sales Navigator to send outbound messages so you can build your list that way.
Very cool. So when you send out outbound messages to your second degree connection, third degree connection, do you reference the person that you have mutual connections with them at all, or what's your initial message when you send out?
It depends. Usually it's usually not referencing the person because I have so many, I don't even know how many LinkedIn people I have. It's north of
Yeah.
5,000 for sure. But it's usually not because the reality is I probably don't know that other person, to be frank. So it's usually something else. If it's their profession, right? Let's just say it's doctors. Sid, his wife is a
Yep.
doctor. So our CEO at Headway, his wife's a doctor. So I can reference that in the connection message and say, hey, Tim saw, and what I use, there's a couple of things you could potentially reference. One, a big popular one that works really well is I saw you commenting on a post that I liked, right? So let's say they commented on something, it could be real estate related or not. That's what you're referencing in the connection requests, right? Hey, Tim, I saw you commented on a post that I commented on. I agree with your message. I just want to reach out and connect, right? There's no talk about real estate. There's no talk about anything else. I'm just trying to connect. And then if they accept, you start a conversation, right? So that's a popular way. I saw you in the comments. I just want to reach out and connect because I agree with your comment or your post, right? So it could be about a post. Hey, I saw your post and I just want to reach out and connect because I loved your posts. You were talking about family, you were talking about school, you were talking about this, you're talking about that. I saw you traveled to Mexico. I love traveling to Mexico. Just wanted to connect. Again, it's social media. Be social. Right. So that's a big important part. You can reference, I just used a great example. Doctors, 10 plus years, second, third year connections, went to the University of Houston. If you went to school somewhere, leverage it. Maybe you went to UT, maybe you went to A&M, maybe you went to Baylor, maybe you went to Texas Tech, maybe you went to, who knows, Carolina, North Carolina, right? Say, hey, I saw you're in the healthcare space and you went to University of Houston. I went to University of Houston. Go Cougs. Would love to connect with a fellow alumni. Has nothing to do with real estate, right? I'm not pitching a deal. I'm not saying sign up for my webinar. We're socializing. It's social media. Let's socialize and see what happens. And then I can take the conversation in different places. So that's my get your foot in the door strategy. And it's not like a second day accept. I'm like, hey, check out my webinar. That's usually not my approach. Lots of people do that. So you can either take a quality over a quantity game with LinkedIn. You can do quantity and just spam people all day and you'll get leads from it. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a strategy, right? Or you take the quality approach and I'm actually trying to have conversations with people and I want to see where those go. My numbers will be smaller, but I would argue that my quality will be higher.
I love that. And so once they accept your connection request, what is your usual like first message be?
If somebody accepts my connection request, I usually acknowledge it. So I'll say, hey, thanks for accepting my connection request. So sometimes there's couple different strategies. Sometimes I ask them why they accepted it because I want to know. I'll say, hey, thanks for accepting my connection request. What made you decide to connect? Was it, and I'll say, was it because I was alumni? I'll just ask. Or sometimes, depending on the avatar, I will ask a specific question very targeted to exactly what they're doing. So if I see that they're in the healthcare space, for example, I might say something like, how are your, what's the term I use for? Something around their business. So how's your practice doing? I'll say something like that, right? How's your practice been? How's the year been for you? How's your practice been this year? I'm asking a very specific question about their particular. I am trying to start a conversation. I'm not trying to pitch them right off the bat, right? I want to start a conversation. Or if they went to U of H, again, this is why you're looking for little things you can use as leverage. Same alumni, same city. Maybe they worked at a company you used to work for, right? Maybe you were in oil and gas and you worked at Shell 20 years ago or 10 years ago, and now they work there. Hey, I saw you were at Shell. When did you leave? Or what did you do when you were there? Even though it says it on their freaking profile what they did and how long they were there, I don't care. I just want to start a conversation with you. So finding smart questions you can ask. The goal is to get them to reply and start having that conversation. So if you start pitching them on your webinar, hey, ever thought about real estate? Like I'm hitting the mark as spam button. So it's just let's have a conversation here. That's usually how I'll start it. Why did you accept my connection request? I saw you went to University of whatever. What year did you graduate? Or something along those lines. Or I saw you're living in Houston too. Were you born and raised in Houston? It's just it's if you and I were meeting at a conference for the first time or we're networking, right? A sports game or bar or whatever. I wouldn't walk up to you and be like, hey Tim, how's it going? Want to invest in real estate? Like you would look at me like I'm crazy. I'd be like, hey man, where are you from? What side of town you come from? Oh, you live out in so. Oh, my family grew up there. Oh, me too. What school did they go to? Oh, they went to this. Oh, that's awesome. My nephew goes. It's the same thing. It's just on social media.
Love that.
Yeah.
So with your messaging style be so personal like that, Are you able to leverage a VA or any kind of software tool at all to be able to help you scale it?
Yes. So there are lots of LinkedIn software automation softwares that will essentially you can upload a list to them, whether it's like a CSV file, or if you wanted to scrape data off of Sales Navigator, you can literally just type in LinkedIn automation software. There's quite the number of them. There's WeConnect. There's this one, an elephant one. I can't remember the name of it. There's Dripify. There's a ton of these things that essentially they all do the same thing. They have a different coat of paint on them. It's like the same software, right? So you can sign up for that, and what it will do is it will send connection messages for you. But that often makes it less personal because it's automated, right? So you have to pick a message and it just sends the same message to everyone. It has some customization features, syntax, where you can say, hey, first name, saw you went to insert school name. Like you can do that a little bit, but it's not as personal as just doing it manually. So we have a hybrid approach. We use a little bit of that. But what I've also read, and I don't know if this is true, I don't work at LinkedIn, obviously, but I've read that if the LinkedIn algorithm knows that you have a connection to it and you're not, doing it yourself, I read that it can sometimes like water down your visibility. I don't know how
Mm.
true that is, but anyways, so we have a hybrid approach. We do have a VA. I do have a VA that goes out and she will prospect. She will go and look for very specific avatars in very specific areas of LinkedIn and send messages and connection requests. Exactly what I just said. Hey, Dr. John, saw you in the comments on the doctor forum. Our CEO's wife's a doctor, would love to connect. It's just, again, she's being very selective, right? These are very intentful people. Because the thing about social media, or LinkedIn in particular, is a lot of people have an account, but they're not active. And that's okay, right? So we're sending a message to somebody who made a comment on a post, they're active
Yeah.
because they're making comments on posts or they liked something. Hey, I saw you liked a post, so let me send you a message. So we use a hybrid approach to reach out to people, and there's a lot of training involved for that, of course, on the messaging. So that, because if you just tell her, hey, copy and paste this message every time, it won't work because it won't necessarily be personal. It'll sound robotic.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, one of the filter tool that I use is called Posted on LinkedIn, which allows you to select the people who have posted on LinkedIn within the last 30 days. So I like those will be the first ones
Yep.
I approach. So very cool.
Yep.
Man, it's been an amazing interview. It's like the time goes by so quickly. I want to continue the
Yep.
interview, but I don't want to hog up all the questions in case some of the folks on the call right now might want to ask questions as well. Brian, thank you so much for being on our show today. Really appreciate you